Hey everybody. So we're still a couple of months away from the start of the NHL season, and it's pretty early to be talking about things like this, but let's talk about Stanley Cup contenders for this coming season, the 2019 Stanley Cup. Before we get to that, I just want to quickly say if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. As long as you're a fan of the NHL and hockey, there are videos here for you. So hit that subscribe button and follow this channel. So here's who I think are legitimate Stanley Cup contenders for next season. Now, obviously, a lot of things can change between now and next year's Stanley Cup. We have, injuries play a huge role throughout the season. Trades, free agency is pretty much done, but between teams making moves and injuries, a lot of things can change. And again, these are just teams that, when you look at their roster on paper right now, look like they could definitely compete for a Stanley Cup. There are other teams out there that could end up being a lot better than anticipated, and some of these teams may end up not being nearly as good as we think. But right now, my list is comprised of 10 teams. Toronto, Tampa Bay, Nashville, Winnipeg, Boston, Washington, Vegas, LA, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh. Now, these aren't in any order. These are just teams that I think are legitimate contenders for the Stanley Cup next year. And if you told me to pick three teams that I think are at the top as far as who would you bet money on winning, I would say Tampa Bay is my favorite right now. I think Nashville is definitely up there. And after that, Tampa Bay and Nashville to me seem like the two best teams. After that, you have Toronto, who obviously adding John Tavares is a huge move. I still have a lot of questions about their defense, though. Washington, can they repeat? Repeating is very, very difficult. Boston, did they make themselves any better this offseason? I think they made maybe a couple of decent moves, but also some that had me scratching my head. Pittsburgh, you can never really count out Pittsburgh. LA was one of the best defensive teams in the league last year, but they couldn't score goals, and that killed them. If LA can score goals this year with bringing in Ilya Kovalchuk, if he's a 30-goal scorer, then LA is right back to being one of the best teams in the league. Can Vegas repeat what they did last season? There are so many questions about the rest of these teams. I would say just because of Crosby and Malkin and Matt Murray is going to be better than he was last year, I think I would have Pittsburgh as my third team as who I think is a favorite to win the Cup. So my top three teams right now, before the season even starts, are Tampa Bay, Nashville, and Pittsburgh. That's who I think have the best chance of winning the Cup. All of these teams have a chance to win the Cup, and other teams that I haven't even listed here could end up being much better than we think they are and end up going on a run. So let's start with Tampa Bay. They're my number one team right now. I think when you look at their roster on paper, they are the most complete team in the NHL. They have a fantastic all-star elite goaltender in Andrei Vasilevsky. They're incredibly good on the back end. Their defense score is incredible. And they're deep up front. Yes, they lost Chris Kunitz, but they've got other players that can fill in a fourth line role. They are three lines deep up front, three lines that can score goals, and a very good fourth line as well. I think Tampa is the best roster in the league right now as a whole, and certainly I think definitely one of, if not the favorite for the Stanley Cup going into this season. Toronto, obviously they made a huge move this offseason in signing John Tavares, and he puts their forward group over the top as being one of the absolute best in the NHL. Maybe even the best forward group in the NHL. And skill up and down the lineup. They're going to score a ton of goals. I still have major questions about their back end. Their defense is really what screwed them in the playoffs last year. and they really haven't changed anything. They haven't added at all to that defense to make them better. Um, yes, you can have scoring's important, but you can have as many great goal scorers as you want. If you can't keep the puck out of your own net, especially come playoff time, you're not going anywhere in the playoffs. Um, Toronto's made the playoffs each of the last 2 years, but lost in the first round both times. I have major, major questions about their back end, and until I see either, you know, great improvement from the players that they currently have there, or they make some sort of move to bring in a top four defenseman into the mix in Toronto, I am not going to have them making any deep playoff runs with the current defense core that they have. I don't care who they have at forward. If you can't keep the puck out of your own net, you're not going to go anywhere in the playoffs, and we see that year after year after year. So Toronto still has a lot left to prove as far as I'm concerned. Nashville. Nashville's defense is ridiculous. 1 through 7, they are probably the best defense core in the league, and it's probably, I don't even think it's really close. They are the exact opposite of Toronto. They are absolutely stacked on the back end. They still have Pekka Rinne in net. He's getting older now, but he's still a high-quality goaltender. And I think they do have enough up front to score enough goals. Nashville is not going to have to score as many goals as a team like Toronto is going to have to win games. Nashville can win 2-1 games. Toronto is going to be winning 5-4 games. I think Nashville should absolutely be one of the favorites for the playoffs this coming season, or for the Stanley Cup. It's really hard to count them out with the defense that they have. And defense wins championships, so they're a very strong team. Winnipeg, I'm worried about. They lost Paul Stastny. They they haven't replaced him, so their second line center spot is a little bit of a question mark at this point. However, as many of you have pointed out, they were having a very good season last year, even before they got Paul Stastny. I think they might have overachieved a little bit last year. I think Connor Hellebuck played out of his mind, and we're probably not going to get that same elite level of goaltending out of Hellebuck again this year. We might, but I wouldn't bet on that. I think Winnipeg is still a playoff team and a very good team, but I don't think I don't think they're going to be at the same level that they were last year, and where they had 114 points or something like that. They really had a great year last year. I don't see them having a year that great again. Boston really surprised a lot of people last year in how good they were, myself included. I thought that Boston would be a wild card playoff team. They ended up with like 112 points and finishing just behind Tampa Bay in the Atlantic. They really took a lot of people by surprise. They've kept most of their important players. They have lost some depth pieces in Riley Nash and Tim Schaller. They added John Moore on the back end in a move that I really, really like a lot. And I love the Chris Wagner addition, up front to be a bottom six forward. I think he plays the perfect style of hockey that the Bruins needed. Very physical guy who can also skate and just be a big ball of energy on your third or fourth line. I love that move. I don't love the Yaroslav Halak move. I think they overpaid for a backup goaltender. They should have just kept Anton Hudobin. And why they brought in Joakim Nordstrom, I have no idea. He stinks. But anyway, I think Boston, they might have overachieved a little bit last year. I still think they're going to be a very, very good team. They have Ryan Donato coming in now for his first full season in the NHL. I think he's going to be a 20, maybe even 30. He probably won't score 30 in his first year. Maybe I should tone down with the expectations a little bit. But Donato is going to be a 20-goal scorer, absolutely. The kid is incredibly talented. They have, obviously their top six is really, really good. And, I think Boston certainly has a chance to win the Cup. Washington, I don't have them as a favorite. Repeating is very, very tough to do. And I was even a little surprised that Washington won the whole thing last year. They definitely took me by surprise in doing that. I don't think they're going to repeat, but I certainly think they have the chance to. They're still a very, very good team and a very, certainly a threat in the East, without a doubt. Um, Vegas, I have no idea what Vegas is going to look like this season. Last year, they caught lightning in a bottle. Had this incredible run, this incredible first season. Are they going to be able to do that again? I highly, highly doubt that they have as good of a year as they did last year. I still think they're a pretty good team, but they lost a lot this offseason. They did bring in Paul Stastny, which is a big help, in giving them a very, very good second line center. But I really don't see them having the incredible year that they did last year again. I think they're a cup contender, but they're not a favorite. It's going to be interesting to see where Vegas finishes in the standings this year. I really don't see them being a first place team again. Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles. This team was the best team, had the best team defense in the league last year, allowed the fewest number of goals. They have Jonathan Quick in net. That automatically makes them, a really good, have a really good chance of making a playoff run. They're a talented team. Offense is what screwed them last year. They could not score goals, and they really couldn't score goals in the playoffs. That ended up leading to them being swept by Vegas in the first round. So this offseason they added Ilya Kovalchuk. Now Kovalchuk is 35 years old and has been out of the NHL since 2013. We have no idea what he's going to look like when he comes back this season. If Kovalchuk comes back and looks old and looks like he's been out of the league and really falls flat on his face, LA is a team that might not even make the playoffs. If Kovalchuk comes back and is still a highly skilled, high-level player and scores 30 goals and 50 to 60 points for the Kings could finish first in their division and make a deep, deep playoff run. What these guys do depends a lot on how Ilya Kovalchuk looks, and depends a lot on how can Jeff Carter stay healthy, can Tyler Toffoli and Tanner Pearson bring you anything offensively. If they can get some goal scoring, they're one of the best teams in the league. If they don't get goal scoring, they're a first round exit like they were last year, or maybe even worse. So they're a contender. But I think a lot depends on Ilya Kovalchuk, and a lot, they're certainly a long shot Stanley Cup team. St. Louis, what an offseason they've had. Adding Ryan O'Reilly through trade, bringing in Tyler Bozak, bringing in David Perron. St. Louis has gone all out to win now. And, they missed the playoffs last year by a point. And they were obviously expected to be a playoff team. That was very disappointing for them. They need to put up or shut up this year. Either they make a serious playoff run, or they just need to completely start from scratch in St. Louis. If they can't do it this year, then they're not going to do it with the current team that they have. This team has gone all out to really win it this year, and I think they're absolutely a contender going into this season. I wouldn't call them a favorite. I think there are better teams in the West, but they're certainly a contender. And lastly, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh lost in the second round of the playoffs last year. That's a down year for them. They still have Sidney Crosby. They have Evgeny Malkin. They have Matt Murray in goal. They've added Jack Johnson on the defense. I do still have questions about their defense for sure. I think Jack Johnson improves their defense a little bit, but not enough to where it makes this huge drastic difference. I don't think he's that level of player. So he does make them a little bit better, but I still have a few questions about their defense. If they play up to potential, they're without a doubt not only a Stanley Cup contender, but a Stanley Cup favorite. If they have a year like they did last year and the defense is a little sloppy and maybe Matt Murray isn't as lights out as we're used to seeing, then maybe they're a first or second round playoff loss. Again, we'll have to wait and see. So these 10 teams, I think, are the strongest contenders next year for the Stanley Cup. I think there are other teams that could potentially win it. San Jose certainly, maybe even Calgary. Philadelphia is a team that comes to mind. There are other teams that are long shots to make it or to go on some sort of run in the playoffs and steal a Stanley Cup. But I think when you look at the league, these are probably your top contenders for the Stanley Cup this season. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Did I miss a team? Was there another team that should have been on here? Or any of these teams that were on here shouldn't be up here? Or were they wrongly placed? Let me know what you guys think. This is just what I think. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links in the description below. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.